Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the guests of the United Arab Emirates. I welcome the official delegations, the international organizations such as the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the International Economic Cooperation, and so on. I also welcome the media representatives and the private sector. Welcome to all of you in the United Arab Emirates. We start today this government summit, the summit that is being held thanks to visionary look of His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates. And I pray to Allah to provide him with good health and prompt recovery. This summit is being held on the basis that the building mankind and providing opportunities for men are the keys for progress, prosperity, peace, and stability. Ladies and gentlemen, we kick off this summit that has been held under the patronage of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Deputy Vice President, Prime Minister, and ruler of Dubai, who has wanted that this summit gather the best minds in order to achieve the noblest objective, namely the achievement of happiness of mankind, prosperity, as well as stability of mankind locally and regionally and worldwide. This summit will enrich knowledge and discuss tools. It will provide the venue for the exchange of ideas in order to crystallize the vision of our leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum says that the changing time requires the change of tools, and what is stable in a changing world is going backward. And the best in our world today, those who are the best, are those who are fast in catching up with the changes. The world today, ladies and gentlemen, is going through amazing changes that are so fast, requiring from governments to take a look, to review their strategies and plans, and to update and improve services and reach out to the expectations of citizens, and also to improve their efficiency in policy making. How governments will keep up with the technologies that have changed our life and our reality, and which have had an impact on all aspects of our life. Let me here maybe talk to you in brief about some expectations in order to maybe encourage questions to be raised as far as the services of the government are concerned. A recent study by Oxford showed that more than 47% of the current jobs in administration, in accounting, technical, as well as legal aspects can be replaced by computers within 2 decades only. So how the governments will deal with such a challenge? In the healthcare and for few decades, experts indicate that we have a smartphone today, but in the future we'll have also a smart mirror that will give us the most vital organs of our body, the symptoms of our diseases, and even can just indicate what medicines we have to take. So how health ministries will deal with these challenges. Genetic techniques will help us expect behaviors and attitudes of people in the future, negative as well as positive attitudes. So how governments will deal with such a challenge. In a few years, we will have computers that can be similar or maybe more advanced than the human mind. So how will this impact the outcomes of education in the world? Ladies and gentlemen, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum believes that improving the public services will help in catching up with the changes we are going through, whether they are positive or negative changes, whether they are technological challenges or environmental, economic or political, education or even sports challenges. The management of companies' sciences are improving rapidly, and the development of the government science will be the most important because customers are our main target, who we are trying to serve. Summits, conferences, and other gatherings are held in order to draw people together. Millions are invested, theories are elaborated, sciences are taught in universities and colleges in order to improve private sector establishments. We, in the United Arab Emirates, we do believe that the improvement of the public service and the public management, as well as the public goods, are among the most pressing goals. Companies talk about customers worth millions, hundreds of millions. The customers of governments and the public represent 6 billion people. And this is the population of our globe. When companies talk about profits, governments speak about happiness of people and the creation of opportunities for mankind and provide aspirations for future generations. This is the message which this conference or this summit conveys. The improvement of the public service is the key to achieve the happiness of mankind. This is a message that was clearly conveyed by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum in the first government summit. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Professor Klaus Schwab, the chairman of the World Economic Forum. He is one of the most important scholars and thinkers in the world. He has established one of the most important international economic forums more than 30 years ago, an international forum that discusses challenges facing humanity in the various sectors of life. We are proud in the Government Summit to be partners with the Economic Forum, and we are honored and proud to have with us Professor Schwab. And it gives me great pleasure now to invite Professor Klaus Schwab to talk to us about his future vision about the development of government services. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Minister Gargawi, for this kind introduction. And first, I would like to commend the leadership of the United Arab Emirates of having taken this initiative, because the role of governments in shaping the future of populations, the welfare of its people, never has been as important as it is today. Let me just describe to you first the different types of governance. And governance is how governments exercise their duties. But before doing so, I also would like to congratulate those who have been behind the program for putting together such a rich program which really comprises all the essential elements of leadership, of government leadership today. And what I will do in my short introduction is to create a kind of framework for all the different issues you will address during the next 2.5 days. But let me look at the different forms of governance. You have first what I would call the traditional form of governance, the bureaucratic form, the hierarchical form. It's a transactional way of delivering services. But then you have the modern governance, what I would call governance 2.0, where you use new technologies, not only to deliver services, but to interact with the citizens. And of course, here you have a new relationship between governments and citizens, an interactive relationship, a relationship where citizens can engage, make proposals, criticize, and so on. But what we are seeing is already the next form of governance, which I would call governance 3.0, where people are co-owners, co-shapers, and are really engaged in working together with governments to provide the best services for the future. Let me just give an example. I know Google is very present at this meeting. If you take the Google search machine, it's still governance 2.0, because you ask for an information, you get the best information. If you take YouTube, it's already governance 3.0, because it's a platform, and it's the users themselves who provide the information. And I would see the future of government to a large extent, if I take another metaphor from business, like the iPad platform of Apple, which means the government provides the framework, and it's the citizens themselves who put the application on the platform. Now, let me shortly describe 3 main driving forces which have to be taken into account if you look at governance of the future. The first is big data. This will be the great revolution. It will mean that we can capture not only what's happening, we can capture the profiles of citizens. And this means that as a government, we can much more individualize our services. Of course, there are certain possibilities which are on the good side, but on the other side, we have to be careful not to develop a situation where the government becomes too much a tutor state. So big data will certainly be one of the driving factors and one of the tools governments can use in order to improve their services and to individualize their services. The second big driving factor is public-private cooperation. We know today that the challenges which we face cannot be solved by governments alone. They cannot be solved by business alone or by civil society alone. What we need is multi-stakeholder cooperation to shape our future. And it's not enough just to integrate business and civil society. I think it's very important to integrate the next generation in a world where 50% of the population is below the age of 27. It's essential to integrate youth in what we are doing. But also, we need the best expertise. And that's the reason why we have to involve also in everything what we are doing the best experts. The World Economic Forum, the organization which I'm chairing, is such a multi-stakeholder organization on a global level. But I think we need to apply the multi-stakeholder concept on each level, local, national, and global. And actually what I foresee is that in the future, governments create their own private social communities to interact with their citizens on a continuous, on a sustained way. Now, the third force which will shape governments is the trend to megacities. Cities will be important as the key for the delivery system. I know at the end of this meeting you will have a session particularly related to happiness. Now, if you look who is providing the framework for happiness, it's not necessarily the national government. The national government has as a duty to increase GDP, but it's cities who determine the framework whether people are happy or not. It's cities who provide, let's say, the right measures to avoid congestions in traffic, to provide the right health systems, to provide the educational systems. So happiness is very much determined by cities. Now let me also describe to you three major challenges which I foresee for governments and governance. First, the mastering of the technological revolution. I foresee the next 10, 15, 20 years to be characterized by technological change as we never have seen before. If you just imagine for a moment, if you take all scientists, all engineers who have ever lived on Earth since the beginning of humankind, half of those are still alive today. And that shows the tremendous force behind technological innovation. It's not only the internet, and just imagine, the internet has been born only 20 years ago. Mobile telephones have been born only 20 years ago. We just celebrated the 10th anniversary of what we call social communities. And look how much it has already changed. And what we see now, the new technological revolution is not just changing how we are doing things, it's changing us. Just look how the internet has changed already the behavior of the young generation. And we will see this technological revolution not only in what we call information communication technologies. We see it in many other areas. Fracking, three-dimensional printing. The whole health system will be changed. So how to master this technological revolution is a major challenge, not only for governments, but for all mankind itself. And the technological revolution provides so many opportunities, but it poses also some threats. The first one is, in order to deal with this technological change, capabilities and talents, how to develop those talents, and how to deal with the unemployment which we may have, the structural unemployment, the need to create social inclusion. I said once, what we see now is that talentism is replacing capitalism, because the scarce source for tomorrow will be talents. So how do governments develop the necessary talents and make sure that the talents adapt to the fast economic progress, to the fast technological progress? The second challenge, which I foresee, is not only to deal with the technological progress, but to deal with the complexity. Today, we depend on so many systems. Just look what happened in Japan with Fukushima. It was first a tsunami. It developed into a collapse, into a breakdown of the energy system. It developed into a breakdown of the industrial system because the supply chains were disturbed. So what you have today is the need of governments to master those complex systems which are underlying everything we are doing in society. Now, let me summarize what we actually need if we look at governments. Innovation is the key. Innovation, creativity. So what would we expect from governments of tomorrow? I feel three things. Governments have to be role models in adopting the new technologies. Governments cannot wait and see what others are doing. Those governments will succeed who master new technologies and adopt new technologies in the fastest way. That's number one. Second, governments have to be role models in working together with the other stakeholders, particularly with business, because only through public-private partnerships, governments can make full use of technological progress. And finally, governments can succeed long run if they put the necessary emphasis on education. Education is the key. Education is the key to create the talents for tomorrow. And here, if we speak about education, we have to keep in mind that education will change completely. The emphasis will be on lifelong education. The emphasis will be on education for creativity, for innovation, for minds which are entrepreneurial. So if I put everything together, and I come back to the original model, government 1.0, the bureaucratic government, what we had were the bureaucrats. Today, government 2.0 is public service. You are public servants, underlying the word service. But the future will be to have entrepreneurs in public service. That's what you have to become. Entrepreneurs in public service. Thank you.
I'll ask you in Arabic. Yes. شكرا بروفيسور كلاوس
Thank you,
شواب.
Professor Klaus Schwab.
ما هو أكثر ما يقلق بشكل شخصي
What's your main concern personally when it comes to the main global challenges in the future, Dr. Schwab?
I have two concerns. The first one is of an economic nature, and the second one is more of a political nature. If we look at our future economic development, and if we look at the need of paying back the debts, paying for the sins. I look, for example, at the environmental sins of the past and so on. We may have an economic environment which is more characterized by low growth and not anymore by fast growth as we have seen before the crisis, before 2007. Now, what does it mean? Before 2007, we had a global growth rate of about 5%. Now we can expect probably something more around 3 to 4%. So you may say the difference is not too high. But if you look at the accumulative effect, if you grow the world economy by 5%, you double GDP every 14 years. If you grow by 3%, you double GDP only every 24 years. And this has tremendous importance for social inclusion, for the creation of jobs. But it means also that countries which are very innovative, like the UAE and like what you are doing, have a particular opportunity to do much better. Now, if I look at the political side, my big concern is that the crisis has made all countries, to a certain extent, more egoistic. And cooperation on a global level has become much more difficult. Just look at certain issues like working together to avoid climate change, to get CO2 emissions under control. Look at the certain crises which we have in the world, just not too far from here. What we see is an incapability of the global governance system to deal with those issues. So what we need here also is much more collaborative efforts, not only of governments, but of all stakeholders, to address those issues.
السؤال الثاني
Through your long-standing experience and by dealing with many leaders in the world, political leaders, technological leaders, and economic leaders, what is your definition of real leadership?
You asked me a complex question, and I have to say, during 32 years when I was professor, I was, of course, following all the literatures, and there are so many advices, so many ways to define leadership. I came down to a very simple conclusion. Leadership today, in principle, means only 3 things, or maybe 4 things. It means brains, soul, and heart. Let me explain. In order to be a leader, you have to be a high professional. You have to understand what you are doing. You have to be the best in your field or among the best of the field. But that's not enough. You have to have a soul, which means you have to have vision. You have to have values. You have to know in which direction you are going. You have to have an inbuilt compass. Now, the heart. You have to be passionate about what you are doing. And you have to show compassion for those whom you are serving. And finally, you need good nerves, because you have to deal, whatever you do, with setbacks. And I have to say, if I look at this meeting, and if I look at our cooperation, I see leaders. There are very few leaders in the world who really correspond to those 4 criteria. But if I would have to enumerate maybe the handful leaders who really fulfill those 5 criteria, those 4 criteria in an optimal way, I certainly would find some leaders here in this country. Thank you.
نشكر
We would like
نشكر بروفيسور كلاوس
to
شواب
thank
على
Dr. Schwab or Professor Schwab for his rich and long-standing experience with many sectors, leaders
الاقتصادي العالمي
in the framework of the Davos Economic Forum. We have a distinguished relationship with this forum. Dr. or Professor Schwab mentioned many sectors. He focused on happiness.
السعادة
And he said that the cities are capable of creating happiness. And based on this, we will look at the experience of Barcelona, of London, of Seoul, and this session will be moderated by Richard Quest from CNN. We will be having 4 other interactive sessions and another 12 sessions, and by Sumu Sheikh Hamdan and the initiative of Dubai 2021. We wish you good luck, and thank you, Professor Schwab.